Hello my dear students. So this presentation presented by Болатова А and how the theme of our presentation, our lesson will be how to teach reading in the classroom and what about 10 strategies of the lesson. So let's start our lesson. Lecture plan. Reading as an aim and a means of teaching and the learning a foreign language. The second one, the content of teaching reading. The third one is some difficulties people have in learning to read in the English language, linguistic and extra-linguistic. The fourth one, how to teach reading. The fifth one, mistakes and how to correct them. First one is the reading as an aim and a means of teaching and learning a foreign language. The content of teaching reading. We must answer to these questions: why teach reading, and what kind of reading should students do? The third one, and the topics and the types of reading texts. So let's start. Why teach reading? There are many reasons. So in this lesson we are going to answer to this question: why teach reading? There are many reasons. For the first one, firstly, the students want to be able to read texts in English, either for their career, for study purposes, or simply for pleasure. The second one, the reading texts also provide good models for English writing. The third one, reading texts provide opportunity to study language, vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, and the way we construct sentence paragraphs and texts. The fourth one, lastly, good reading texts can introduce interesting topics, stimulate discussion, excite imaginative responses. What kind of reading should students do? The greatest controversy is one whether the text should be authentic or not. This is because people have worried about more traditional language teaching material, which tend to look artificial, and the use of simplified language which any native speaker would find comical and untypical. If you give low-level students a copy of the Student Times as a Guardian, they probably won't understand them at all. The second one, the balance has to be made between real English on one hand and the students' capabilities on the other. There is some authentic written material which beginner students can understand to some degree. The manuals, timetables, signs, and the basic instructions. The topics and the types of reading texts are worth considering too. Should our students read functional, encyclopedic texts, or should we expose them to novels or short stories? Should they read timetables or manuals, or we can offer them business letters and the newspaper articles? This depends on who the students are, if they're business people, if they're science students, and etc. Among the things the teacher might want his or her students to read are magazine articles, letters, stories, manuals, advertisements, reports, play extracts, recipes, instructions, poems, and the reference materials. The third one is that some difficulties people have learning to read in English, linguistic and extra-linguistic. How to teach reading. The role of teacher in teaching reading. The first one is teacher will be organizer. The second one is observer. The third one is the feedback organizer. The fourth one, prompter. What kind of activities must do teacher in teaching reading? The first one, organizer, observer, feedback organizer, prompter. So let's talk about these points. The role of the teacher in teaching reading. The organizer. We need to tell students exactly what they're reading. purpose is and gives them clear instruction about how to achieve it and how long they have to do it. So, next is observer. Observer, when we ask students to read on their own, we need to give them space to do so. While students are reading, we can observe their progress, since this will give us valuable information about how well they are doing individually and collectively, and will tell us whether to give them some extra time or to move to organize feedback. Feedback organizer, when our students have completed the task, we lead a feedback session to check that they have completed the task successfully. We may start by having them compare their answers in pair, by sharing their knowledge. The next one, the last one, prompter. When students have read a text, we can prompt them to notice language features in that text. We may also, as controllers, direct them to certain features of text construction, clarifying ambiguities. So, what reading skills should students acquire? The first one, the need to be able to scan the text for particular bits of information they're searching for. This skill means that they don't have to read every word in the line. Students should be able to skim a text, as if they were casting their eyes over its surface to get a general idea of what it's about. The third one is whether regard scan or skim. Depends on what kind of text they are reading and what they want to get out of it. The first one, reading for detailed comprehension, whether looking for detailed information or language, must be seen by students something different from scanning and skimming. The next one, when looking for details, we want our students to concentrate on the minutia of what they are reading. One of the teacher's main functions when training students to read is not only to persuade them for the advantage of skimming and scanning, but also to make them see that the way they read is vitally important. What is the principle behind the teaching of reading? The first one, reading is not a passive skill. In fact, it's an incredible active occupation. To do it successfully, we have to understand what the words mean, understand the arguments, and work out if we agree with it. The second one, students need to be engaged with what they are reading. If the students are not engaged with the reading text, not actively interested in what they are reading, it is less likely that they benefit from it. The third one, students should be engaged to respond to the content of the reading text, not just to the language. It is very important to study reading text for the way they use the language, the number of paragraphs they contain, relative clauses, linking words, and etc. But the meaning, the message of the text is just as important, and we must give our students a chance to respond. The first one is we should allow them to express their feeling about the topic. The fifth one, predication, is a matter of fact in reading. So when we read text in our language, we frequently have a good idea of content before we actually read it. Book covers give us an idea of what is in the book. Paragraphs and headlines hint at what articles are about, and the reports look like reports before we read a single word. The teacher should give students hints so that they can predict what's coming too. It will make them better and more engaged readers. The sixth one, match the task to the topic. Once a decision has been taken about the reading text that the students are going to read, we need to choose a good reading task. The right kind of questions, engaging and the useful puzzles, etc. So let's continue. The seventh one, good teachers exploit the reading text to the full. Any reading text is full of sentences, words, ideas, descriptions, and etc. It doesn't make sense just to get students to read it and then drop to move on to something else. The eighth one, good teachers integrate the reading text into interesting class sequences, using the topic for discussion and further to tasks, using language for study and late activation. Remember, the most interesting text can be undermined by asking boring and inappropriate questions. Mistakes and how to correct them. Ways of correcting students, right and wrong. 5 key questions. What kind of mistake has been made? Grammar, spelling, and pronunciation, etc. The second question, what should I do about it? Are correct or not correct? The third one, when should it be corrected? Now, later in the lesson, next lesson. How should it be corrected? Which technique will work best? Who should correct it? Self-correction, peer correction, teacher correction, and etc. Stages. What is the error? Decide if it needs correcting. Decide when it needs correcting. Decide who should correct it. Decide how it should be corrected. Indicate an error has been made. Correct it and reinforce the correction. The techniques. Finger correction. Repeat sentence up to error. Info with surprised intonation. Ask a question. Reading is so delicious. So, my dear students, we have talked about the reading tasks, about the mistakes, about the remembering puzzles. So, let's continue how reading works as a receptive skill. When you read a story or newspaper, listen to the news, or take part in conversation, we employ our previous knowledge as we approach the process of comprehension. We deploy a range of receptive skills. Which receptive skills we use will be determined by our reading or listening purpose. So, let's continue how reading works as a receptive skill. Reasons for reading. We can divide reasons for reading into two broad categories: instrumental, pleasurable. Instrumental, a large amount of reading takes place because it will help us to achieve some clear aim. Pleasurable, another kind of reading takes place largely for pleasure. Processing, top-down and bottom-up processing. In metaphorical terms, top-down can be likened to the difference between looking down on something from above, getting an overview. On the contrary, bottom-up is being in the middle of something and understanding where we are by concentrating on all the individual features. It's the difference between looking at the forest or studying the individual trees within it. In top-down processing, the reader gets a general views of the reading passage by in some way absorbing the overall picture. Strategic skills. At different skills levels prompt different readers to employ different uses of those skills. Identifying the topic, predicting and guessing, reading for general understanding, reading for specific information, reading for detailed information, the last one, interpretation text. Extensive reading tasks. Students should be allowed to make choice regarding reading. Students can be asked to maintain reading diaries, journals about their reading with commentary about the texts. So they can be asked to review and rate the text they are reading. Intensive reading. In order to get students to read enthusiastically in class, we need to work to create an interest in the topic and the tasks. However, there are future roles teachers need to